What's up? Today, I'm going to show you guys how to make a mashup with Serato Stems. Okay, so with Serato Stems, there's been this kind of like, is it good enough for acapellas, instrumentals, like actually that kind of stuff? I do think now, from what I've kind of discovered, I will be using Serato Stems to make some edits in the future. And I'm going to show you why in this video. So I'm going to take a studio instrumental that I have, but then I'm going to use Serato Stems to make an acapella and use that acapella to then make a mashup that I can play out like whenever I'm DJing. So the first track I'm going to drop in here is Galantis, Runaway. And I'm going to actually open up my Serato now. And I am going to make an acapella of a cover of a song that I know is pretty popular right now. And that is Dancing on My Own. It's the Callum Scott version. That one's pretty popular. So what I've found recently when testing and exploring Serato Stems is that if you're dealing with sort of like if there's less going on with the audio, so like in this version, right, he's like kind of just playing the piano and that's it. The software does a great job of separating when there's less elements involved. So if you can find like an acoustic version, you'd be very surprised how well Serato Stems does by isolating those parts that you're looking for. It's actually pretty crazy how good it is at it. So I'll just basically hit the vocal mark here and then go to record, hit record, and let's do its thing. Okay, so I'll just use that part for the example. So what I'm going to do here is, this is obviously just an example. So I'm just going to kind of start this on the 1. Make sure it's at 126. Because that's the tempo I want it to be at. Obviously this shouldn't be 126.01. It should be 126. So I will adjust that in the warping here. Make sure it's on Complex Pro. And make sure this is also at Complex Pro. And I'm going to check the original tempo of that song as well, what's labeled. So it should just be 112, just standard. So that's what I'll put it as, but I'm probably going to end up quantizing this audio anyway. So we'll see what happens. And then I'll get it to like a relatively good spot, just to make sure it fits well. And then once it starts to fit well, then I'll start moving some things around the instrumental maybe a little bit. And then I'll go through and do a little bit of processing on the vocal just to clean it up a little bit. Somebody said you got a new friend. So I want to quantize that. There's a big black sky over my town. I know where I bet she's around. Yeah, I know it's true. So right here, this is where I'm going to adjust the instrumental a little bit. I'm going to give it just a little bit more bleed here. And I'm going to put a delay somewhere around here just to give it a little bit more space. So like right there. So I'll just use a standard delay here. Probably set it at 4 fade. And then I'll automate it to turn on somewhere around here. And then turn off once that piano comes back in. Yeah, I know it's stupid, but I just gotta see it for myself. I'm in the corner, watching you kiss her. Oh, oh, oh. And I'm right over here. You gotta keep quantizing it, make sure it stays on. And I'm right over here. Why can't you see me? Oh, oh, oh. And I'm giving it my all. I'm not the guy you're taking home. Ooh, I keep dancing on my own. So this is just an example. Actually sounds pretty good, so I might actually go through and make a full version of this.
Yes! We know each other. He's a friend from work.
But now I kind of have a general arrangement together of what I'm looking for. This trick with the delay is something I do use a lot when I'm moving an instrumental around and I need to get a little bit more space. I will use a delay just to fill that dead space, like with just that little bit of noise that it needs. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of shift my focus just to the vocal, because that's the last thing that really needs to get addressed for this like initial example to be done and to sound pretty good, if I do say so myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo this and go through and manually cut out all of the space that is not being used in this DIY. And the reason why I'm doing that is sometimes, like, because the software, when it's correcting or making its DIY, it's like basically just reacting a lot and cutting a lot of things out. So what I want to do is I want to help it, because a lot of times that resonance or those like other frequencies that are trying to come back in will really come back in towards the end. So I just want to cut all of that dead space out. Yeah. This is the most tedious part, to be honest. The rest is kind of smooth sailing from here. Yeah, I know it's stupid. And what I'm using is I'm actually using Control E. That's my keyboard shortcut on Ableton, just to like, that's like what cut is Control E. So if you want to make an initial cut, I pretty much just have my left hand sitting on the keyboard, just getting ready to hit Control E anytime I want to get rid of a certain section. Oh, it's stupid. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, now that I have everything kind of like chopped up, there actually was a lot of reverb that was still there. That can cause some problems because the vocal is still bleeding a little bit. So you're debating, like, do I keep the reverb? Do I get rid of the reverb? I decided to keep it because it didn't sound too bad. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use an EQ, though, to correct anything, kind of reduce any harshness that might have been there from the DIY being created. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to find the loudest point of the vocal, which looks like it's right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo it, listen to it, and then use this headphone section, which I'll select here. Make sure everything is on like the notch option. And then what I'm going to do is I am actually going to change the Q on these to the maximum amount, just so it's the most like precise curve that I can get. I don't even know what the letter Q actually stands for in this thing. I just know that it makes the curve tighter for the notch. That like ringing there, you kind of want to notch a little bit of that out. And I'm giving it. Don't want to go too crazy, but it can be a little harsh sometimes, so that might need a little bit more ducked down on it. And then I'm just going to do a standard like high pass here. And I'm giving it my, and I'm giving it my all. I'm not the guy you're taking home. But all that's left to do now is to kind of play this from start to finish. Just give it another listen through, make sure it sounds good, and correct anything that needs to get corrected. But I don't think so. I think it's really good for what it is. And I think for Serato Stems, if you're dealing with like acoustic covers and things like that, I would definitely recommend experimenting with stems to make your acapellas in that regard, because I think it does a really good job at extracting the acapella for you to use, especially if you want to drop it into a DAW and make a mashup like this. I think it's actually really good. Yeah, I know it's stupid, but I just gotta see it for myself. I'm in the corner watching you kiss her, oh, oh, oh. And I'm right over here, why can't you see me, oh, oh, oh. And I'm giving it my all, I'm not the guy you're taking home. Ooh, I keep dancing on my own. Alright, that does it for today's video. Hopefully you guys learned something new. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. This is very similar to the DIY one that I did a while back, talking about like acapellas and kind of what to do with that. But since Serato Stems has come out, I almost think that you need to do less when you make your DIY acapellas, especially when you're dealing with these like acoustic, piano covers, things of that nature. I think it's actually a really good software for that specifically. I think it does a really great job of extracting the vocal out of that. Also, let me know if you guys want this. I'd be more than happy to make it for you. Yes! If you want it. So just let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be back next week, back on track with my record box videos. So if you're trying to learn how to DJ on USBs, know everything there is to DJing on USBs, make sure to check those out, and I'll be back soon.